Amara clutched the small vial in her trembling hands, her heart pounding as she stood in the empty fertility clinic corridor. Inside this tiny container was her son's last hope, his final sperm sample before the cancer treatment would destroy his chance of ever becoming a father. But when she accidentally picked up the wrong vial labeled Femi Adeleke, Nigeria's youngest oil tycoon, she made a split-second decision that would change three lives forever. 24-year-old Femi Adeleke sat in his private jet, staring at the Lagos skyline through the window. As the heir to West Africa's largest oil empire, he had everything money could buy. But the one thing he desperately wanted remained out of reach. 5 years ago, a car accident had left him paralyzed from the waist down, and despite his billions, no woman had ever looked past his wheelchair to see the man he truly was. Meanwhile, in a small fertility clinic in Abuja, 22-year-old Fumi was about to receive news that would shatter her world and thrust her into a scandal involving Nigeria's most powerful family. Amara had been coming to this clinic for months, watching her 19-year-old son, Tunde, slowly waste away from leukemia. The doctors had been clear. The aggressive chemotherapy that might save his life would also destroy his fertility forever. As a single mother who had worked 3 jobs to raise her only child, Amara couldn't bear the thought of him never having the family he had always dreamed of. Mrs. Amara, the nurse had said that fateful Tuesday morning, "We need to collect your son's final sample today before we begin the intensive treatment tomorrow." Tunde was too weak to come to the clinic himself, so Amara had volunteered to transport the sample. But as she stood in the sterile hallway, holding what she believed was her son's future, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The vial in her hands wasn't labeled Tunde Okafor. It read Femi Adeleke, patient number 4477. Her hands shook as she looked around the empty corridor. Everyone knew that name. Femi Adeleke, the paralyzed billionaire whose family owned half of Nigeria's oil reserves. His tragic story had been splashed across every newspaper. The golden boy of Nigeria's elite, struck down in his prime, now confined to a wheelchair. Amara's mind raced. Her son was dying. The treatment might not even work. But this vial belonged to one of the most powerful men in Africa, a man whose child would never want for anything. In that moment of desperation, Amara made a decision that would haunt her forever. She switched the labels. What Amara didn't know was that Femi had been secretly storing his sperm for a surrogate arrangement. Despite his paralysis, his reproductive system functioned normally, and he had been working with Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, Lagos' most discreet fertility specialist, to find a surrogate mother. The irony was devastating. Femi, worth over $3 billion, couldn't find a woman who wanted to marry him for love, let alone carry his child. Every relationship ended the same way. Women who were initially attracted to his wealth would eventually leave when they realized his disability was permanent. "Mr. Femi," Dr. Okonkwo has said during their private consultation, "I found the perfect candidate, Fumi Adebayo. She's 22, healthy, intelligent, and from a good family. She has agreed to the arrangement to pay for her mother's cancer treatment." Femi had nodded, trying to hide the pain in his eyes. Even this, becoming a father, had to be a business transaction. He would never experience the joy of a mother choosing to have his child out of love. Fumi had never imagined she'd be in this position. As a final year medical student at the University of Lagos, she had dreams of becoming a pediatric surgeon, but when her mother was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, those dreams seemed impossible. The treatment will cost more money than her family could earn in 5 years. Her father, a retired teacher, had already sold everything they owned. When Dr. Okonkwo approached her about surrogacy, offering enough money to cover her mother's treatment and her own medical school fees, Fumi saw it as an answer to prayer. The father is a very private man, Dr. Okonkwo had explained. He is financially stable, educated, and specifically requested an intelligent surrogate. You fit all these criteria perfectly. Fumi had agreed, believing she was helping a couple who couldn't conceive naturally. She never imagined she was about to become pregnant with a child of a man whose sperm wasn't even supposed to be there. 3 weeks after the procedure, Fumi sat in Dr. Okonkwo's office, tears streaming down her face as she stared at the positive pregnancy test. Congratulations, Fumi, Dr. Okonkwo smiled warmly. The procedure was successful. But Fumi wasn't feeling celebratory. The reality of carrying someone else's child had hit her harder than expected. She found herself wondering about the father, who he was, what he looked like, whether the child would have his eyes or a smile. Meanwhile, Amara was living with a secret that was eating her alive. Her son, Tunde, was responding well to treatment, but every night, she wondered about the child that would be born from her desperate decision. She had essentially stolen from one of the most powerful families in Nigeria, and she knew the consequences would be catastrophic if discovered. Femi, oblivious to the switch, was preparing for fatherhood in his own way. He had bought a mansion in Banana Island, hired the best nannies money could buy, and even started learning about child development. For the first time since his accident, he felt something resembling hope. The truth began to unravel during Fumi's second trimester. During a routine ultrasound, Dr. Okonkwo noticed something unusual about the baby's bone structure and requested additional tests. I need to run some genetic screening, she told Fumi during her 20-week appointment, just to be safe. When the results came back, Dr. Okonkwo's face went pale. The genetic markers didn't match Femi's profile in the system. Immediately, she began investigating, pulling security footage and reviewing protocols. That's when she discovered Amara's presence in the clinic on the day of the sample mix-up. Dr. Okonkwo was faced with an impossible choice: reveal the truth and potentially destroy multiple lives, or stay silent and let an innocent woman carry a child that wasn't meant to be hers. She chose to investigate further first. When she tracked down Amara, the desperate mother broke down completely. "My son was dying," Amara sobbed. I thought this child would have a better life with a wealthy father. I never meant for anyone to get hurt." Dr. Okonkwo discovered that the sperm samples that were supposed to be used for Fumi actually came from Tunde, Amara's dying son, who had since recovered from his treatment. Dr. Okonkwo made the difficult decision to bring everyone together. In her private office, she arranged a meeting that would change all their lives forever. Femi arrived first, his driver helping him navigate his wheelchair into the building. He had no idea what the urgent matter regarding your surrogacy arrangement could be. Fumi came next, now visibly pregnant and glowing despite her confusion about why she had been called in. Finally, Amara arrived with Tunde, who had regained his strength and was now cancer-free but still gone from his treatment. "I've called you all here because there has been a mistake," Dr. Okonkwo began, her voice heavy with the weight of the revelation she was about to share. As she explained the mix-up, the room fell into stunned silence. Femi stared at Fumi's pregnant belly. realizing that the child she had been preparing for wasn't his. Fumi looked at Tunde, seeing her baby's actual father for the first time, a young man her own age who had fought death and won. Amara wept, knowing her desperate act had been exposed. And Tunde looked at Fumi with wonder, realizing he was going to be a father when he had thought cancer had stolen that possibility forever. What happens now? Fumi whispered, her hands protectively covering her belly. Femi, despite his heartbreak, was the first to speak. The baby belongs with his real parents, he said quietly. I won't stand in the way of that. But Tunde surprised everyone. Mr. Femi, he said, struggling to find the right words. I know what my mother did was wrong, but you have already prepared for this child. You have already made space in your heart. Maybe there is a way we can all be part of this baby's life. Fumi looked between the two men. One who had the resources to give her child everything, and another who could give the child something money couldn't buy. A young father who understood struggle and perseverance. Over the following weeks, an unusual arrangement began to form. Femi, moved by Tunde's maturity and Fumi's grace in handling the situation, made an extraordinary offer. I'll take care of all medical expenses and education costs, he told them. Not because I have to, but because this child came into existence through circumstances that involved all of us. I may not be the biological father, but I have been preparing to love this child for months. Tunde, grateful for Femi's generosity but determined to be a real father, insisted on being actively involved. I want to earn my place in my child's life, he said. I'll work, I'll contribute, I'll be present. Fumi, witnessing the character of both men, realized she had fallen in love, not with wealth or status, but with Tunde's resilience and determination to overcome every obstacle life placed in his path. When baby Femi Tunde Adebayo was born, named after both men who would shape his life, he entered a world where he was surrounded by more love than any child could need. Femi became the honorary uncle who provided financial security and wisdom. Tunde became the devoted father who taught him about perseverance and integrity. Fumi became the mother who showed him that sometimes the most beautiful families are born from the most unexpected circumstances. And Amara, forgiven by all for her desperate act, became the grandmother who reminded everyone that love sometimes makes us do impossible things. 2 years later, little Femi Tunde took his first steps in the garden of the house that Billionaire Femi had gifted to Fumi and Tunde as their wedding present. Both his families cheered as he stumbled between them, not understanding yet how unique his family was, only knowing he was loved. Femi, watching from his wheelchair, finally understood that sometimes not getting what you want gives you exactly what you need. He had gained a family in the most unexpected way, not through biology, but through choice, forgiveness, and love. Tunde had learned that being a father wasn't about perfection, but about showing up every day with love and determination. And Fumi had discovered that the most beautiful love stories often begin with impossible circumstances and unlikely heroes. Sometimes, the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most complicated packages, and sometimes, a desperate mother's mistake can become everyone's miracle. Did you enjoy this story? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. This week's special shout out goes to everyone who believes that families can be built in the most unexpected ways. Your support means everything to me.